Good day, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to join us on behalf of the members, the board of directors, the steering committee, the executive management of the CDG. Welcome, and thank you again. My name is Doug Martell. We promise that we will take less than an hour of your time today. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to what we have to say. We have quite a lot of material to cover today, so we're going to jump right in. As everybody knows, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time covering old material, but as everybody knows, the CDG was formed almost 2 decades ago. And in that 20 years, the world has changed quite a lot in ways that none of us could have imagined 20 years ago. And the challenges and the opportunities that telecom operators and vendors are facing today are very different from 20 years ago. And we feel very strongly that it's time for us to update the focus and the charter of the CDG to position it better to meet the needs of our members. The CDG board met in Barcelona at Mobile World Congress in February, and at that time they put together a steering committee to prepare a formal proposal to the members, and that's what we're proposing to you today. Our agenda today will feature keynotes from several industry leaders about their expectations from an industry organization. We'll talk a little bit about our proposed reinvention plan. We'll also cover the value-added services that the organization provides in technology, in devices, in roaming. We'll review the finances and how your member fees are going to be put to work for you. And finally, the webinar will conclude, and please, I hope that you'll be able to join us until the end. The webinar will conclude, most importantly, with the opening of board nominations and the distribution of a member referendum requesting your approval of the plan that we're proposing today. As some of you probably heard, throughout the webinar, we're not going to take questions, but we'll field as many questions as we can at the end. So if you could, in the chat box on the right of your screen, provide your questions, we'd be happy to answer as many as possible in the time allotted at the end. And those questions that we don't get to, we would be more than happy to answer in a personal email. Again, thank you for taking the time from your busy schedules to join us and to listen to the proposal that we're presenting today. Please allow me to introduce our keynote speakers today. We have Mark Lipford, Director, Global Standards and Ecosystem Development from Sprint. We have Eric Graham, Senior Vice President, Strategic Relations at C Spire. And we have Ed Tiedemann, Senior Vice President of Engineering at Qualcomm. And with that, I'll hand the ball to Mark. You're up first.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Doug. Excited to be here and excited to be a part of this transition. As Doug mentioned, you know, I work at Sprint. I think probably a lot of you have seen me in the past. I've been involved in the CDG for 15 plus years, as well as other standards activities. And we're excited to be a part of this reinvention and revitalization of the organization. What we think is important as you know, Sprint, just like many of you, we're transitioning, you know, from a CDMA-only network to a hybrid network with multiple technologies. And I think there's a need for a place that operators can come together and that we can talk about some of the challenges we have and seek some input from the manufacturers, you know, and share the knowledge that we're going through as far as our growing pains. You know, we need a place that we can lobby and that can be a voice for the CDMA community, and particularly for the smaller operators. We recognize the value that you provide and to the ecosystem and to the industry, and we want to continue to help support that. I believe recent numbers show that the smaller operators make up over half of the CDMA ecosystem. So you are important and valuable, and we want to continue to leverage on that. And just overall, we need a sounding board, a place that we can go to and again seek information, seek knowledge, and help guide the industry. And I think there's several areas that we can continue. CDG has always provided a good platform for, and we'll continue to do that. And the first of those is in the device community. Like it or not, the industry can like it or not, CDMA technology will exist for years. Nobody's going to shut the network down next week that I'm aware of. And with that, we need somebody, or we need a sounding board to help stimulate the ecosystem, to help make sure that the OEMs continue to support the technology in their iconic devices. We can't fall behind from that perspective. And we need a place to communicate with these, to pull the OEMs together and to hear a unified voice and to help generate those requirements and the multi-mode selection that we have to have and those activities. So, we believe CDG is a perfect place for that. Another area is in roaming. The international roaming team has probably been one of the shining examples of the value that CDG has brought in, and we think it will continue to be that, to play that role. We need a place where the operators can come together and meet and greet and get to know who do I need to call if I've got a problem roaming, in Montana or somewhere where it's important. And we need that place. So we think, CDG is a great place for that, as well as, standardizing the roaming tools. Does this mean that we will stand alone, or will we start working with the other organizations in the industry? I think that's something that we can talk about and also work with going forward. The last area that we think CDG can still provide a valuable tool is in the technology roadmaps. The old GSC, I think it did a lot of good information development. Maybe it wasn't shared as well with the operators, but it does a lot of good research and communications and again, on multi-mode selection, on how to manage a HETNet environment, adding CDMA into your other portfolios, or as you bring, LTE or whatever into your portfolio, how do you manage those? So how do you get a return on your investment? We think that's another area of very important conversations. So again, we're extremely excited about this opportunity and what it means, and encourage you guys to join in and to be a part of it. And with that, I would like to pass it over to Eric Graham of C Spire and get their perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to the steering committee for the invitation to participate in this morning's webinar. My name is Eric Graham with C Spire, and you'll hear that some of my comments from a smaller carrier's perspective are going to echo some of what Mark shared from a large carrier's perspective just now. For anyone who's not familiar with our company, C Spire has roughly 1 million wireless subscribers, which places us well below the largest operators in the U.S. in terms of customers. But proportionally, we're well ahead of the 90 or so smaller operators in the U.S. We share some of the larger operators' ability to make timely network investments, but like the operators smaller than we are, we have limited technical resources, and we suffer when an ecosystem is fragmented. C Spire is excited about the opportunity that CDG has now to evolve into the new Mobility Development Group, because we believe it can serve two primary purposes for smaller operators. It can be a venue for coordination and collaboration, as well as a vehicle to support our existing network investments and extend the tail of CDMA that we rely on today. You know, there's no real venue out there for CDMA operators to discuss operations and share practices in a group setting. We don't do that in trade groups, though we do build relationships there. That's just not the forum for that. And we certainly don't do that in standards bodies. Manufacturers can be helpful and can be very helpful at times, but it's inefficient to use them as middlemen in exchanging best practices. So we see the potential for the Mobility Development Group to give us that venue as carriers. By having that venue, we can collaborate strategically, we can reduce fragmentation in the CDMA ecosystem, improve operations for everyone, and reap the benefits from that. You heard Mark mention devices, that's a very clear one, as well as network equipment. We can benefit from reduced fragmentation in the CDMA ecosystem there. By promoting interoperability, we can improve both domestic and international roaming, which is another area that smaller operators need to improve on and have better roaming relationships, especially internationally. By streamlining the ecosystem and promoting interoperability there, we can improve roaming for carriers our size and smaller, and larger for that matter. The second point that I mentioned was using the Mobility Development Group as a vehicle to support our existing network investments. You know, smaller operators made significant investments in 3G not too long ago, and then LTE arrived on the scene very quickly. In fact, before many smaller operators even completed their 3G upgrades. CDMA networks, as Mark said, are not going anywhere anytime soon. They will be around and they will require support. Many have deployed LTE extensively in their networks. Others are beginning their deployments or beginning to make those deployments extensively. And multi-mode CDMA LTE networks are the present and the foreseeable future. So Mobility Development Group allows us a chance to aggregate the demands of the CDMA and CDMA LTE operators so that we can speak with one voice, and also provide a forum to help each other as we evolve from CDMA to LTE. The CDMA to LTE transition is not a bolt-on process like 1X to EVDO, and there's an opportunity for first movers to aid others in the transition of their networks. You know, in our discussions, we believe the Mobility Development Group gives us a way forward to achieve those objectives. We believe the steering committee has recognized carriers' needs, and we believe they're committed to delivering value-added services to the members under the format of the new Mobility Development Group in a way that has not been done before. We like what we see with the new structure that ensures that operators will have a voice regardless of their size or regardless of their location in the world, and the renewed commitment to transparency so that members will have a clearer view into the operations of the group and be able to benefit from the technical services that the Mobility Development Group will provide. And then on top of that, as you'll hear about in a little bit, member fees that are fair, certainly fair in relation to the value that we are able to derive as carriers from this group. So thank you once again for allowing me a few minutes to participate this morning and share our optimism about the new Mobility Development Group and possibilities that it offers. We are excited about the future of the organization. We hope that you are as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Ed Tiedemann of Qualcomm. Ed?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Good morning, good afternoon. I hope everyone can hear me. Let's sort of get to the slides, which I notice seem to be rotated, at least on my screen. So I hope that doesn't cause you all a problem. Maybe if you have a cell phone, you can rotate unless it automatically rotates back for you, or turn your laptop or your monitor 90 degrees to help display that. Christy, I don't know whether you can do anything about that or not.
Yeah, not at this point.
Okay.
Sorry.
So
Ed, just a comment. I believe that there's a tab at the bottom that people can use to rotate the screen or rotate the view. It says view. It's at the very bottom. I think you can rotate right.
Yeah. View, down at view, you could just rotate the page left or right.
oh, that works.
There we go.
Ah. So let me turn to the next slide here. I guess I'm also having a problem. Where's the button?
Up at the top there.
Ah, there it is. So I wanted to talk about two things. I wanted to talk about just simply what we're doing and involvement to really look at all the CDMA or the key CDMA organizations as we move into a new phase of CDMA, and then also talk a little bit about CDMA and Qualcomm support for the CDG restructuring work that's been going on here. So to look at this, basically, as I think is indicated by both Mark and previous presenters, most of the operators have decided today that the next generation of equipment that they're going to deploy, with the next generation system they're going to deploy, is LTE. Operators have also decided that they're going to reduce some of the capital investments in new CDMA capabilities, particularly those that involve hardware changes. So essentially what they're doing is they're taking their capital and focusing it on more the next generation systems. Of course, many are still doing CDMA upgrades and enhancements to support capacity needs, i.e. adding new cell sites when the capacity goes up and providing better coverage. Also, we should note that CDMA still provides really the highest quality voice system that we have out there of any of the air interfaces out there, and certainly the one which is the most efficient in terms of I'll call it bits per second per hertz, or in terms or spectral efficiency. In addition, there are operators still deploying software enhancements for better efficiencies and new capabilities, such as for M2M or some of the 1X, what do we call revision F capabilities and revision E capabilities there. Okay, so in general, what this is saying is that there's generally less system level change and the need for underlying new technology developments. However, there is a lot going on and when I mean new technology developments, I mean new technology developments directly in CDMA itself. However, there is a lot of technology developments happening as it relates and has been going on related to CDMA LTE interworking, and clearly on the device platforms, there's been a huge amount of innovation happening and will continue to occur on device platforms. So just as a couple things from a pure business perspective, today we still have not peaked yet on the sales of devices actually supporting CDMA. And that's as the operators' networks and the number of customers have gone up, and there continually demand for CDMA devices and all of that, which will keep device manufacturers, chip manufacturers, and people like that supplying things for many years. I don't have a full survey of operators or anything like that, but my informal discussions with CDMA operators and things like that they're planning to keep their networks around for 10 years or more. So it's still, as has been indicated, a very important business for operators to keep their investments that they've made into that, and also for the vendor community to continue to support these networks that are out there. So what we've done as Qualcomm is that we've essentially started to look at this, what we call this next phase of CDMA. where we're not really going out and being active in the sense of generating major new systems designs like new revisions of the air interface at a major level to enhance capabilities. But what do we want to do for this next phase, where it's going to be smaller enhancements, continually maintenance, continually running networks. And so from my role as being responsible for standards and industry organizations in Qualcomm, I've worked to take a look at sort of the three key ones, which are the 3GPP2, the CDMA Certification Forum, and the CDMA Development Group. And I want to talk a little bit about what we've sort of done for the first two of these, and then when I'm done, I'm going to turn it over to Doug, who's going to talk much more about the CDG and where that is going in the future. So again, our objectives here are really to look at these organizations and to structure them to serve the needs of CDMA till the end of life. We want to have effective organizations that meet the needs of the operators and the vendor community for both the needs that they have today as well as the needs that they'll have 5 years and even 10 years out from now while their networks are still running. And finally, we want to make them cost efficient for the community. Over time, we're seeing sort of price pressures going on the entire, I'll call it ecosystem, not only CDMA, by the way, it's the entire cellular ecosystem out there. And so what we really want to do is to make it cost efficient and effective so that we keep membership and people engaged in that. And we keep them also engaged because what we want to be able to do is to rely upon the expertise that many of the operators and the vendors have and the people in these operators and vendors so that as needs come up in the community, we can call upon these people with their wealth of expertise that they've gained over many, many years to support us in this. So before I turn to that, I'd just like to so let me turn next to the next slide, sorry, and talk a little about each 3GPP2 and what we've done, and actually in the process of doing still for 3GPP2. And I think rather than read all of this, I'll let you read most of it and really basically address sort of the key conclusions, which I've essentially reduced from the full set because some of the recommendations that actually were approved as part of 3GPP2 have a few more things that are not sort of related to this discussion, more internal detailed matters of 3GPP2. But what we did was took a good look sort of at the steering committee and the organizational partner level of 3GPP2 and tried to come up with some steps and actions and also starting with some of the key points that we wanted to really do with 3GPP2. So for example, we want to be able to address any maintenance requests from operators or any issues that come out. We want to continue to maintain the availability of the core specifications, maintain the ability to update the specifications, deal with any issues, new work requests are coming in, be able to deal with issues that change, for example, in 3GPP that may affect 3GPP2. For example, as enhancements happen to LTE, are there any things that we end up needing to do on the 3GPP2 side to make the interaction and the interoperation with LTE work smoothly and as desired by that? But I think you get the sense of what we're trying to do here in this. So what we really decided to do is we want to make 3GPP2 essentially be viable and remain as an entity until the sunset of networks. And I said that may be out 10 years or whenever the economics or the operator community decides that it's time to pull the last plug here on systems. Also, we want to maintain key core competence with people who understand the specifications. We will be reducing sort of the operating mode of 3GPP2 in the sense What that means is we will continue to have meetings, but we will be trying to reduce costs significantly by having fewer face-to-face meetings and going much more to phone calls, webinar type arrangements of that. And as a result, we believe we can cut the budget significantly in the organization, yet maintain the ability for people to participate in such, and to maintain some administration capabilities of that there. So we're in the process of doing this, and we'll see more changes in 3GPP2 beginning in 2015. We still have 2 more face-to-face meetings scheduled for this year on it, and then next year we'll be doing much more focused on primarily phone call type of arrangements. Let me continue here and talk a little bit about the CCF, which is related to certification aspects of it. And what we've done there is a slightly different approach to it, but each one of these we've looked at differently and tried to figure out what was the best way to handle. So basically what we're doing with the CDMA certification form is it will be itself sunsetting basically around the end of this year. But what we're in the process of doing is moving the device certification for 3GPP2 devices or capabilities into the GCF, or Global Certification Forum, which has essentially been the certification body for 3GPP technologies. But what the advantage of this does, it provides a single certification body for multi-mode equipment, and most equipment today out there on the market is really multi-mode equipment. And the advantage of this is it makes it more of a one-stop shop. The goal is to reduce the certification burden, particularly for the multi-mode devices. Without going through the details of the time frame, I'd just like to state that basically what we've done is things should be pretty much all operational. We're expecting relatively soon to have CCF certified devices coming out. I'm sorry, GCF certified devices for CDMA coming out. And then, as I said, the plan is to sort of wrap up CCF operations by the end of the year. But any device that's currently been certified is planned to show up in the master GCF database and just to be accepted, and then with some minor things. Changes will be operational, doing somewhat similar processes, but under the GCF umbrella. Just as a note, I think it's worthwhile to call out a few people from the CDMA community who are quite involved in this. Nick Bastard of Sprint, I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. By the way, Nick is, who's been chair of the CCF board, is now also chair of the GCF board of directors. By the way, I should also note that Nick has been involved in some of the discussions that we've had relating to the work going on in the CDG in terms of its transformation into the Mobility Development Group, which Doug will be addressing in a few minutes. And then Mitch Kettrick, who's been chair of the sort of the core group in the CCF, is now the guy who's sort of leading the equivalent group that's going on in the GCF. So turning to the next slide, I don't want to spend any time on this, but this sort of gives you the structure that's going on in the GCF right now, where we essentially what we've done is we've sort of put under what's called CAG 2, the CDMA or 3GPP technology work, and that's sitting underneath the steering group as part of that process. So let me turn to my last slide of content, and just like to say and sort of illustrate this with a little bit of a damp sine wave here. But basically, looking at Qualcomm, we're a member of more than 200 different industry organizations, and all of these roll up into to me. Yet I come from, and Qualcomm comes from a history and a background of CDMA. It's really what made the company. So we are very much committed to the CDMA industry. We are very much into supporting all of these industry organizations, which I've been talking about, and providing guidance and leadership to these organizations. So right now we're going through a transitory phase of these organizations, as it's sort of implied by the graph. And what I'm expecting here as we go through this transit, there'll be a number of changes, and I think Doug and the CDG is now well on its way to sort of stabilizing itself sort of at a new plateau and a new role for the CDMA industry and its ecosystem. I think I've said enough. Let me turn it over to Doug to continue.
Thank you again, Ed and Mark and Eric, for helping to set the stage here, and also for clarifying the needs and expectations of your organizations. As I mentioned earlier, the board met in Barcelona and appointed a steering committee of many folks that you probably know that are on this call today to propose a plan. The plan that we're proposing features a new name, a new multi-mode focus, new leadership, and member-driven value-added services. And the new name that we're proposing today, as I think Eric mentioned, is the Mobility Development Group. Although cellular air interface standards converge at LTE, we all know that, the telecom landscape is even more turbulent now than ever before. And now more than ever, our industry needs a platform, a forum for wireless network operators to come together, to address common challenges, to exploit opportunities, and to expand their international business relationships. I think that's the common theme that you heard voiced by Mark, by Eric, and by Ed. There needs to be a platform for operators that are moving to 4G from a legacy CDMA history to come together and solve the problems and the issues and the challenges that they face. The new organization has to be, and I hope everybody will agree, it has to be air interface agnostic. An organization that's CDMA specific is really irrelevant in the contemporary telecom landscape. 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, and others, because the diverse array of devices for personal and home and auto, health, energy, they're going to utilize a diverse combination of technologies to meet customers' performance and price needs. And so our organization, to really be relevant going forward, must be multimode as well. There are three pillars to any telecommunications network, and consequently, these are going to be the three pillars of our organization. Those are the network technology, of course, devices, and roaming or interoperability. They're going to form the foundation of the value-added services that this new organization that we're proposing today will provide. I'd like to introduce Bram Praerscher of Alcatel-Lucent, who is going to speak about the technology efforts. Asif Hamidullah of AH Management Group, who is going to present our device program, and Limi Mackay of Qualcomm, who's going to tell us just a little bit about the roaming team's activities. So with that, Bram, you're up first.
Thanks, Doug. So let's move on to the next one. Okay. So once again, thanks, Doug, and I would like to extend warm welcome to everyone who joined the webinar today. And just to get started, as Doug pointed out, we are in the midst of a fastest network evolution and migration in history. And as we transform CDG to rise to the challenges and opportunities of today and tomorrow, what we did is we looked at how we can continue to leverage our collective learning, the best practices, the expertise we have built over time, the experience, to create value and share it among all the members. And with that, hopefully the agenda here listed here hopefully will give us a better understanding of how we create that value and share it. So historically, one of the value-added services is carried out by a team called Global Strategy Team, which is also called GST. And as you can see, the current members are network vendors like Alcatel-Lucent, Ericsson, NSN, Qualcomm, and GT, and historically it has been limited to network vendors and chipset providers, and there was an underlying reason at that time when the network was evolving, a lot of features and products and solutions were needed. We wanted to make sure that all the vendors harmonize, make sure that interworking, interoperabilities, and no fragmentation. So as time has changed, I think Doug is going to propose that we open it for all the members who wants to be part of the steering or the global strategy team. Having said that, as the name suggests, we are a global strategy team. That means that our mission is to provide strategic direction for the technology roadmap based on the evolving market dynamics and lead advocacy effort to promote industry interest and to benefit all the stakeholders. And the question is how we do it. As you can see here, the way we do it is by evaluating the trends and opportunities, by interfacing with various market entities, standard boards and vendors and analysts, and talking to all the operators and getting the feedback. And that provides us a much better understanding of market dynamics. And leveraging that understanding to understand how that impacts the operators operating in that market dynamics and what features, products, and solutions are needed in the marketplace to address those pain points. And we use that to articulate our technology roadmap and also articulate or highlight the focus areas, and also provide the strategic direction and feedback to the steering committee. And also we make sure we work closely in a close collaboration with other working teams like Device Strategy Council and Roaming Councils. Moving into the next slide. I think as Ed pointed out, the roadmap is very well defined and well understood in terms of how the CDMA 2000 is evolving over time and how the LTE has been evolving. And there have been some incremental improvement as the market demanded. One of them is the RevF, where there was a market need that the operators would like to leverage 1X Advanced to deploy M2M, and we need to optimize that air interface. And also, as Ed pointed out earlier, that operators at this stage are reluctant to do big capital outlay, but they are interested in leveraging the embedded base and amortizing the investment for longer. So in that regard, the features like DO Advanced has plenty of software-only features to extract more capacity from the given network, better performance, more capacity. So that's well understood. And on the bottom, we see how the LTE roadmap has been evolving, and from LTE now focus shifting to LTE Advanced, and how the Wi-Fi, we used to be the standalone, now is becoming more into mainstream of the cellular networks. So with that, what GST did is the member did a brainstorming session and came with a focus area. When our customers or operators in the industry migrate to LTE, what are the focus area of concern or the challenges they face, and how we as the industry can address those. So one of the first one is the focus is on data interworking to ensure we address the interworking and interoperability. That's the package data. The second focus area is to make sure when our customers or when operators migrate to LTE at their own schedule, is make sure they have path to circuit switch voice, depending upon what their plan for VoLTE rollout is when it's commercially available. So GST team lay out a solution on the table, saying that there are various solutions. There you can use a dual radio or the single radio solution. What are the pros and cons? And then if you use a single radio solution, then the circuit switch fallback and those. and eventually, once you start rolling out the VoLTE, how you can leverage some of the work of Circuitsys Fallback to provide SRVCC. So addressing those concerns. And third one is, as I said earlier, is effort to bring Wi-Fi from standalone operation to under operators' control, so operators can have better control of the quality of experience. And the next one is managing HetNet. And we know for sure that future networks will be heterogeneous. It's not by choice, but it's inevitable fact that future networks will be heterogeneous, and the GST and the Mobility Development Group, the focus is in 3 dimensions here. The first one is to address the technology variation in the interfaces, and also the form factor. Some can be macro cell, some can be metro, some can be femto. So different cell sizes and different air interfaces. The second focus is the challenges associated with the band fragmentation, not only at the network, but also a bigger impact on the devices, how this impacts, and how this impacts the device ecosystem, how this impacts the choices we make for interworking, for example, Circuitsys Fallback, and the third focus is how to address the roaming. That also becomes part of when we have a heterogeneous network, and it becomes very important once, depending upon what solution you're rolling out, and then who can be your roaming partners. If you have Circuitsys Fallback, making sure your roaming partners have the similar kind of feature suites. If you have a dual radio, make sure they support similar kind of band classes, or combination of band classes that impact on the devices. There's a lot of challenges which we try to highlight and address and share with the industry from our learning curve. Going to next one, this is some of the events, just a highlight of some of the events GST organizes around the year. As you can see, we try to leverage some of the industry events like CCA, CTIA, and the big presence there. We do the partner events there, and events one we did last time was at the CCA, focus on the building and managing the HetNet, which were very well received. Next one coming is at the Super Mobility Week. We will focus on launching LTE and managing the 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, HetNet, and impact on infrastructure, devices, and roaming. And also we have M2M white paper highlights the cost pattern and applicability of CDMA 2000 for M2M, which is being revised right now. So there are a lot of events, and we do over the year, which part of the sharing with all the members and part of advocacy. And going to the next slide, this is just a recap. Is how GST creates value and delivers to the stakeholder. As you can see, hopefully I provided an understanding of how we can provide a deep understanding of market, and then leverage that collective experience and best practices and the knowledge and the experience, and share with the members and create value. And with that, I would like to end, and as we said earlier, we will encourage each and every one who wants to be part of the GST team going forward. Please send me email or reach out to any one of us. And with that, I would like to end this presentation, and thanks again for your time. And I will answer any question at the end. And now I would pass it off to my esteemed colleague, Asif, who will go over the devices.
Great. Thank you, Bram.
Thank you.
Let me just bring up the presentation. Okay, so hello everyone. My name again is Asif Hamidullah. Some of you may know me from some of the work that I've done in the past on devices for the CDG, as well as chairing the technical working group at the CCF. Today I'd like to really talk to you about the devices program being proposed as part of this overall transformation of the CDG. So as we all know, the growth and adoption of mobile devices and services over the last decade has been phenomenal. And as networks worldwide migrate from 3G to 4G, the adoption of these multi-mode capable devices will only continue. And while LTE is widely considered to be the sort of the end goal for realizing global network harmonization, the path to LTE has actually been quite challenging, as operators and vendors continue to support, as already mentioned, various flavors of 3G, all of them having to interwork with 4G LTE. So one of the focus of our group, the device program group here, is at least in the near long term, will be to ensure how can we manage and overcome some of these multi-mode specific device challenges so that at the end of the day, products and services are seamless irrespective of the underlying radio access technology. So as we can see, there are several key fragmentation-related challenges facing operators that are deploying and managing multi-mode networks. The first is related to radio access mode differences. Now, whether this is support of FDD or TD-LTE, or even both in some cases, as well as ongoing support for 3G and Wi-Fi, all of these different radio access modes increases the device's complexity, and their interworking with LTE is needed to ensure the seamless user experience. The second issue is related to global spectrum management. With different regions supporting different band combinations and operators refarming existing spectrum for 4G. There are currently like more than 300 live LTE networks worldwide with more than 40 different band combinations, and this is only likely to increase. So as a result, devices now have to support multiple bands to overcome some of these spectrum limitations, which is now critical for global roaming. Third issue is related to many operators having to support legacy circuit switch voice services, at least until all the issues with VoLTE are sorted out. And this means devices may be supporting SVLTE, CSFB, or SRLTE, or hybrid 1X LTE, or a combination thereof. And longer term, as VoLTE gets deployed, as Bram mentioned, SRVCC is going to become important as well. And finally, OS and application layers. With the various different smartphone OSs available today and ones coming out, as well as many over-the-top applications, all of these will require some form of active operator management and control in order to ensure compatibility with underlying multi-mode service capabilities. So what this all translates to is that while we maintain some region-specific differentiators, what we should really aim to do is to define and implement a core set of multi-mode service enablers that allow for seamless interoperability of devices across networks. So from a program perspective, this means having a more holistic end-to-end view of the mobile device and service offerings, ensuring that necessary support and expertise required to have common design requirements, implementation schemas, test solutions, and just overall commercial viability of products and services, that all of these are available from the industry. We plan on doing this by continuing to support an overarching device strategy council that some of you may be already familiar with from the past. And this would be made up of our member operators that is forward-looking, market-driven, and that can provide key technical direction based on specific market needs. And under the guidance of the DSC, we would continue to have a device requirements working group, which would be responsible for harmonizing global operator requirements as well as the development of test requirements and solutions. We'll also have an active focus on device aggregation to ensure operators are able to get new devices in a timely fashion and focus on commercialization of common platforms and then development of processes and procedures to allow for rapid deployment of devices globally. The third focus will be to provide operators who are deploying new networks, devices, or services specialized support that will bring together both business and technical expertise on a specific subject area. So part of this would be to hold, for example, educational sessions and training sessions with members based on learnings and best practices that we can take from other members or other regions to help facilitate this transfer of knowledge. And finally, we'll also establish and maintain a centralized repository of information that can be accessed by members to help in the planning and deployment of products and services. So this would include a device information database that would contain the technical specs, capabilities, accreditations, and other types of information for different device models. We're looking to do all of this because when we take a look at the device technology landscape, especially from an industry perspective, we can very clearly see that while 3GPP-based technologies such as GSM, WCDMA, LTE are very well defined and handled in terms of requirements and testing, multimode-specific technology work incorporating CDMA and then WCDMA and LTE is more limited. So our ultimate objective is for the group to be the glue that sort of binds the market-specific needs of the operators and the standards work that is available from industry organizations such as the 3GPP, 3GPP2, and the GCF. Some of the specific areas that the team will be looking into in the near future is development of requirements for multimode voice, so for devices supporting SRLTE, ECSFB, SVLT, et cetera, and then longer term VoLTE and SRVCC. We'll also take a look at multimode system interoperability with a specific focus on multimode system selection. And as Bram mentioned, heterogeneous networks will become more and more commonplace, so we'll make sure that a focus will be there on 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi roaming, et cetera. We'll also take a look at some specific requirements to support carrier aggregation and how that impacts interoperability with 3G networks. Another focus will be multimode system performance, so not just ensuring that the overall voice and data services work, but how well they work. And we'll look to define here benchmarks that can be established for both voice and data services that emulate real-world environments that are experienced by the end consumer. And finally, for the OS and application layer challenges, we'll take a look and focus on developing requirements for things like geographic localization of certain apps, developing common APIs that may be needed for multimode IoT and roaming, as well as SIM applications and overall general subscriber management. Our areas of engagement are really defined by our members, so it's critical that as we move forward in this process, we have your participation and feedback in not just helping to define these topics, but really to drive the overall long-term strategy of the group. So participation would be key, and we would highly encourage all of you to be part of the meetings that take place and really contribute and share with us your thoughts and your ideas on how we can overcome some of these specific challenges. And with that, if anyone has any questions, again, I'll ask everyone to submit them into the chat window on the bottom right, and we'll do our best to answer them by the end of the webinar. But now I'd like to hand over the ball to my colleague, Libby Mackay, who will talk about the international roaming program within this group.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Asif. So I'm going to let you know what's going on with international roaming and roaming in general. So to state the obvious, operators are in the midst of a significant transition to new technologies. Some are already implementing 4G, others are in the planning phase. And of course, we all want to realize revenue from the existing infrastructure as long as possible, but we cannot jeopardize our existing roaming footprint and our subscribers while implementing 4G. So now carriers will be, and many already are, running parallel networks, but they don't necessarily have twice the budget or resources to do this. So we have to find efficiencies to accomplish our goals. Guided by a strong and participatory IRT steering committee of vendors and operators, the IRT has shifted our focus from CDMA to multimode roaming. Our team addresses the roaming challenges and opportunities of carriers with CDMA, LTE, and evolving technologies worldwide. We provide our members a forum to sit down in person and work through the details of their real-world pain points, while at the same time creating and building relationships with colleagues from around the globe. We're large enough to have a deep pool of expertise to draw from within our members, but small enough to truly get to know one another and to strengthen our working relationships. With these resources, we believe that we're in a unique position to bridge the knowledge and the experience gap that exists in multi-technology roaming. Some operators believe there is no difference between a GSM operator implementing LTE roaming and a CDMA operator implementing LTE roaming. Yet we are aware of differences, such as system selection, voice strategy, data fallback, things that have already been mentioned by Asif and Bram. We intend to review each major component of roaming and identify the deltas for legacy CDMA operators, as well as opportunities for education. So potential initiatives. Operators are making decisions right now that will impact their options or opportunities for roaming partners going forward, such as what frequencies will be in their devices and how they'll support voice. we can help provide the tools and the data that these operators need to make well-informed choices in an effort to avoid costly mistakes. A few ways we can do that are helping operators understand the frequency landscape, making LTE training available, and updating existing tools like C-Right and the PRL tools. And speaking of the PRL tools, multi-mode system selection, which has been mentioned, but it won't be addressed anywhere else. It's a complex topic which requires education and support in order to do it well. Just when operators have mastered the PRL, now we toss in multi-mode system selection. In order to be proficient, an operator needs highly technical expertise in this area. So ways that we want to help support them are updating the PRL tools, the preferred roaming list tools, making training more available for operators on multi-mode system selection, ensuring educational documents are up to date and available, and then of course work with the device team to understand how to better support the small and medium-sized operators with things like device acquisition, testing, and support. We also would like to focus a bit on voice and SMS strategies. So we'll work with Bram and Eva of the Network and Technology team, as well as Asif and Dennis of the Device team, to ensure operators have the information they need about voice and SMS so that they can successfully create their roaming roadmaps in a multi-technology environment. So I don't claim to be a technical expert in areas such as circuit switch, fallback, VoLTE, SRV-CC. But I don't have to be now that we are working more closely with the other value-added services teams within the CDG, or perhaps Mobility Development Group. They can lend their expertise to provide resources to support our roaming operators and empower all types and sizes of operators to make the choices that are right for them. So finally, we need your support and your involvement to provide the maximum value to our operators. Please share your pain points, your roaming pain points in the areas where you need education and tools. If you're too early in the process to know what you don't know, that's okay as well. Even general comments are welcome and helpful as we solidify our focus and prioritize our work efforts. I hope you'll plan to join us at our member meeting in October on the Sprint campus in Overland Park, Kansas. This is going to be the first time that all three of the value-added services groups have held our meeting together. And with that, here's my contact information. Don't hesitate to contact me should you have any questions or advice for the roaming team. And I'm going to now hand it off to Mark Lipford, who is our treasurer.
Thank you, Libby. And hello again, everyone. Different hat on now. Instead of Sprint, I'm speaking as the interim treasurer for the organization. And I want to just spend a little bit of time and talk to you about a couple of updates as far as the memberships, and also a little bit on how we're going to fund this thing and how we're going to stay viable and important. Won't take too much time. I know we're running tight on time, and I know Doug's got some last-minute stuff to share. So first, as far as memberships, the current plan is we will continue to be led by the mobile operators, but we also consider a very tight partnership with the vendors and OEMs, and we'll continue to be open to any interested parties. And one of the things that we're striving to do is to create a more open and transparent membership list, as well as simplification on our membership categories, which hopefully will help keep people more engaged and interested. From a treasury side of things, obviously we've got to make sure we can continue to keep the organization viable. And the steering committee, we're currently working with the interim board and are updating our financial plans. We are working on improvements to rein in the expenses and to make sure our operational efficiencies are there, and to make sure that your dues are applied to the services and not to overhead costs. I believe effective in the current billing cycle, you should see a reduction in your overall fees. We are continuing to work with the board, and we hope to have a completed and final membership list and categories to submit to the board so that they can be shared with the group in the next few months. But we are looking at our structuring of our fees with a couple of key milestones or targets that we're looking at. One is we want them to be based on the values that the MDG will deliver to the members, as well as what is our operational cost. We are looking at continuing to squeeze the budget and to make this a very streamlined and effective and efficient organization. So, we will be looking to the members to help provide the work from a volunteer perspective to help keep your fees and dues down. So as we move forward, we hope you guys are willing to step up and to contribute and to engage actively. And again, look for more information on the fee structures and the member categories as the board finalizes this and moves forward. And with that, I believe, Doug, I pass it back to you for our wrap-ups.
Thank you so very much, Mark, for bringing us up to speed on the finance activities. And again, I hope that everyone will share with me in thanking you for graciously offering to accept the treasurer position and your dedication to transparency. So thank you again. And then thank you, Bram, Asif, and Libby for highlighting our value-added activities. That is the core service that this organization provides to our membership, to the operators and to the vendors. So thank you again so very much, and for your leadership of those teams. Just to be very clear, I want to highlight the fact that the board, the steering committee, the executive management of this organization work for you, the members. The service teams work for you to address roadblocks to your profitability. But that being said, we need your direction, your participation in the service teams, in the leadership groups to guide the activities so that we can be assured that going forward we do meet your needs and expectations. We do address the challenges that you're facing that hinder your profitability. We are proposing a very ambitious plan here today to reinvent the organization. And to proceed with that plan, we need your approval. This is a member-run organization, and we want to make sure that we are in tune with the needs of our members. What are we asking the members to do today? A ballot, as I mentioned earlier, a ballot will be distributed shortly after the webinar, asking for your approval of the changes to the name, to the charter, the multimode charter that we presented here today. And those changes will be reflected in the governance documents of the organization. I'll get to that in a second. And also, we're opening up board nominations today. You can nominate a board candidate in two ways. First, you can send your nomination to our corporate secretary, who is Libby Mackay, and her email address is on your screen. And also, we will be sending an email reminder shortly that will provide another opportunity to nominate board candidates. Any member can nominate a candidate for the board of directors, but please confirm with your nominee their interest in being a candidate. And if there are currently 11 board seats available. If there are less nominees than board seats, all of the nominees will become board members. If there are more nominees than board seats, then we will have a board election. Regarding the referendum, there will be 2 proposed changes to the Articles of Incorporation, and I think we're up to 6 now proposed changes to the bylaws. I apologize, it did get quite long. We initially weren't expecting for the changes to be quite this comprehensive, but in the end, it turned out that as you can imagine, the Articles of Incorporation and the bylaws had not been updated for 20 years, and there was a little bit of work that had to be done. So regarding the articles, we're changing the name again to Mobility, or we're proposing to change the name to Mobility Development Group as opposed to CDMA Development Group to reflect the new multi-mode focus. And also we're changing the charter to be more multi-mode and less exclusively CDMA. And again, same thing with the bylaws. We're proposing to change the name to Mobility Development Group. The bylaws had a stipulation about the office. We're going to change that to leave it at the determination of the board. We'll also change the scope and charter to be more multi-mode. We also want to change, as you can imagine, back in 1995, there were 2 kinds of people in the telecom world. There were operators and there were manufacturers, and that's changed a lot since then. So we want it to be a little bit more broad in the classification of members. And then finally, in 2014, electronic balloting is the norm and not the exception. I'm not even sure if electronic balloting existed in 1995, but anyway, we wanted to update the bylaws to include that. And then finally, there have been some changes to California nonprofit organization law regarding the responsibilities of the board to conduct business during emergencies, and there was a housekeeping update that needed to take place for that. So again, you will be receiving a ballot, hopefully not very long after this webinar. So please, when you receive the ballot, please reply. It should be very simple. You can read the ballot. It will have redlined articles and bylaws so that you can precisely understand the nature of the changes. And then there will be a link to respond with your approval or disapproval, as the case may be. Regarding next steps, we put together a brief timeline so that everyone can understand what we've done in the past several months. As I mentioned, there was a board meeting at Mobile World Congress in February. In April, Perry LaForge resigned as executive director, and we wish him well in the future. Perry is very supportive of this transformation, and we're very grateful for his support. A steering committee was formed by the board, and the steering committee had a face-to-face meeting in Costa Mesa in May. The steering committee has been having weekly teleconferences since then to put together the plan that we're proposing to you today. The ballot will go out shortly, and we're proposing to keep the ballot open for slightly over 2 weeks. And then, depending on the response from our members, if the membership approves the transformation that we're proposing today, we elect a new board. The new board will meet in September, and then we will have the Mobility Development Group partner event at CTIA Super Mobility Week in September. And then, as Libby mentioned, we are tentatively planning a member meeting in Kansas City in October, hosted by our good friends at Sprint. thank you again, everyone, for taking the time. I realize we ran over on time. I apologize. I know I promised to keep it under an hour, and we've gone about 15 minutes over. We will be more than happy to entertain your questions now. I'd just like to say that working together, I'm confident that our renewed organization will provide value to our members as a forum to focus energies and address the challenges that we're all facing as we crash into 4G and a very, very complicated and turbulent telecom landscape. So again, thank you all very, very much for taking the time to join us today. If you have any further questions, you'll find a link to contact us on our new test website. The URL is on the screen right now. Please give it a try. Visit. It should have the presentations for today's meeting shortly, if not already. And then with that, we'll start on questions. I think, Christy, if you could open up the microphones so that we could hear people's questions. And also, there were a few that were submitted on online. The first question. Oh, I'm hearing some reverb, Christy.
That's what happens when you unmute everybody.
Okay. So maybe that wasn't such a great idea. Let me back up, Christy. There were a couple of questions that came in online. The first question was when will and if 3GPP2 and 3GPP will merge. Ed, would you be willing to take that question for us?
Hear me here. By the way, it's good to see so many familiar names I can see from the participant list here going back many, many years. So just to take the question, over the years we've looked a few times at whether it makes any sense to merge 3GPP2 with 3GPP. Looking at the situation, it was really decided it was probably not the best thing to do. It's not that we couldn't, but the amount of effort and turbulence to actually bring the two organizations together would be quite involved and create a huge amount of effort to do that. And everything from issues of just the way to develop specifications in 3GPP is done differently. We sort of have to carve out an entirely separate group because I'll call it 3GPP2 for the most part is a sort of system unto itself that would work autonomously, just sort of under like the PCG Project Coordination Group 3GPP to make that to work. And without spending more time on it, I'd just say that there's lots of issues that we could address that would have to be addressed to do this. But just to make a couple comments on this, today, the issues related to, I'll call it interaction with 3GPP are actually not there. You know, if we go way, way back 15 years ago or something like that, there was a lot of, so I say, tension between the groups. Those don't exist anymore. And so pretty much anything that, let's say, 3GPP2 sort of needs to get done or wants to get done in 3GPP, things are getting done relatively smoothly and things work out pretty well. So that they're separate organizations is really not a hindrance in that sense. I'd further like to sort of conclude with just to note that a large fraction of the correspondence actually from 3GPP2 that's going out right now actually has been with the Smart Card group under ETSI, the ETSI SCP group, just because there's been a lot of issues and things dealing with SIMs and CSIMs in particular as we're sort of launching LTE in the CDMA community. So unless there's a follow-up question or comment, I'll mute myself and turn it back to Doug.
Thank you, Ed. A second question that came in, which operators have deployed multimode system selection? Libby, can I impose upon you to field that one?
Sure, absolutely, Doug. So unfortunately, I can't say the specific names of the operators because I don't know if they make that public or not. I assume they do, and I can say that, you know, most of the largest CDMA carriers that you know about, and many of the people that I see on our participant list today on this call have already begun to utilize multi-mode system selection. I can let you know that, you know, I've been involved in training classes and document development and things like that, and worked with many of the carriers out there that are doing this right now. I'd be happy, I'm not sure where the question came from, but I'd be happy to seek permission from at least a few of those carriers to get those, to be able to release those names to you. I'm just very careful about not doing that unless they've given explicit permission. But it is an area that there's actually, it's probably the most requested thing that I hear about these days in the roaming arena that people need help with, because it is so complex. So I know lots of people out there are doing it. If anyone on the call wants to volunteer, because I know many of you are, you can raise your hand and we'll make that announcement. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Libby. A third question we have is, will operators participate in the member activities of the Mobility Development Group? We have a few operators on the call today. Mark, could I impose upon you to respond to that one on behalf of Sprint?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, Sprint is absolutely interested, and we plan to fully engage in the various activities, you know, in all three areas that's been presented here today. And back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else want to respond to that one? Eric, are you still on the call?
I am still here. Yeah, I think just kind of in line with my previous comments at the beginning of the webinar, we're very optimistic about the direction that this is going, and if things proceed the way that we expect them to, then I foresee us participating.
Thank you, Eric. And I think that's fair. The organization needs to be relevant, it needs to be contemporary, and it needs to address the needs of the operators and the vendors, and it needs to include operators and vendors to be successful. It needs to be a forum that brings the operators and the vendors together to solve problems, streamline commercialization, so that everybody can make money. So again, thank you, Mark and Eric. Another question.
I'm sorry, Doug, just one caveat to what you were saying right there. This is Mark again. I mean, I think, you know, the operators and the vendors need to be involved to make the group relevant, right? They can't wait for the group to do something before they involve, because we are the Mobility Development Group. It's not the group representing the operators. We make it up. So, you know, I would encourage, you know, all the participants to not just join, but to spread the word and to actively engage.
Thank you, Mark. That's a very good point. You know, this isn't a unilaterally run organization. This is a multilateral organization that's run by the membership, and we need member leadership, member participation. So thank you again, Mark, for your insights. And one last question, I think, before we wrap it up. how will the Mobility Development Group differ from what is already being done in the GSMA? Asif, could I impose upon you to maybe start with that question, and then if anybody else would like to chime in, please feel free to.
Sure, Doug. So when we look at the work that industry organizations like the GSMA are doing, I mean, our ultimate objective is to work in collaboration with all industry groups and offer complementary type of support. So we're not talking about here replacing any of the work that's currently being done. Just by the very nature of our organization and the members, typically, i.e. being CDMA operators, their role and their sort of direction that they've been providing to groups such as ours, this is where they can really get their sort of their say and make their case for having certain work being completed in the industry. So while other operators have been participating in the GSMA and have been driving some of the work that's been taking place there, similarly, operators that have been members of the CDG, it's an opportunity for them to focus specifically on this multi-mode type of work that we've identified as being sort of the near long-term level of importance that may not be currently being tackled in the GSMA as it needs to be. So ultimately, in the long run, whether that collaboration comes even more closer, and eventually, if there's work that can happen under sort of one sort of umbrella, that could be a possibility. But at this stage, the work that we'll do is specific for our members in their needs to migrate from 3G to 4G, and making sure that the coexistence of both LTE and CDMA networks is feasible.
Anybody else have anything to add to that one? Asif, I just want to go ahead.
Well, just from the roaming perspective, I mean, much of what I would say mirrors what Asif suggested, but we view that a lot of the GSM carriers and legacy GSM carriers already have a lot of the information about the process and how LTE works and what you need to do to become an LTE roaming partner. And we at the IRT would like to help bring our legacy CDMA carriers up to speed on that. They may not have been exposed in that in the past. They may not be talking about the same kind of concepts. One quick example is roaming steering. As you start to talk about GSM, then you know what that term is, but from a CDMA perspective, you probably don't. So there are simple things like that that we'd like to help our carriers come up to speed so that they can more quickly compete on a global level with the entire industry.
Thank you, Libby. And I just want to add that our goal is not to compete with other industry organizations, but to work collaboratively and to complement their efforts. We are uniquely positioned to serve the needs of the CDMA and CDMA multimode community. But as Libby and others have mentioned, our world is no longer as homogeneous as it once was, and networks are much more heterogeneous today than they were 20 years ago. And to be relevant, the organization needs to take that into account and serve the contemporary needs of the operators and the vendors. So again, I think that an organization that focused exclusively on CDMA is really irrelevant in the contemporary landscape, and that's why we need to embrace all air interface technologies and work with other industry organizations to ensure that the needs of our membership are being met. So with that, we've run out of time. I'd like to thank everyone again so very much for taking the time to join us, our members, our potential members, our board, our steering committee. Thank you all again so very, very much. And we will be following up with everyone in the future. Please stay tuned. Please be ready to hear from us. We want to know your thoughts. We want you to participate. Again, this organization is run by the members. And again, just a reminder, you will be receiving the referendum very, very shortly. Please respond. And also, please nominate board candidates. So thank you again very, very much, and we look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. And just one last reminder, please, if you have not already done so, please register for our partner event at Super Mobility Week in September. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful day.